I know you're about to ask. Yeah, and that's going to be your guys' relationship forever now. You like peanuts.
I do. They're delicious.
What is happening, everybody? It is Monday evening. It is time to break down Monday Night Football with my friend Eric Lindquist. So what we're going to be doing here, deep dive. We're going through both sides of the game. We got Raiders, Packers playing on Monday Night Football, hopefully better than the Sunday Night Football game, which was totally dog shit, and we didn't even get to see the starters really play in the fourth quarter. And then right after us, we've got Loughran and Neil Orfield breaking down the slate on the NFL Live Before Lock. So stick around next 2 hours. Any questions you guys have, hit us up in the YouTube channel. If you are a subscriber to our site and you're in Discord, message me. We can answer those questions as we go. And also, shout out to Owner's Box, who is sponsoring our show today. If you guys haven't checked out Owner's Box yet, sign up using the link below, because when you do, you get 1 free week of everything we have in our football package. You get access to our Discord channel, you get access to player projections, ownership projections, the contest generator, Sims tool, all that is included. So check out Owner's Box if you guys have not done it already. And also, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel while you guys are here, because we do appreciate that. It helps keep all of our content free. Eric, what's going on? How was the weekend?
It was good. Continues to be profitable in the MLB betting streets. Been posting a lot about that over on X. If you guys are still interested in tracking along, I'm tracking my results for it. Been pretty darn good so far. But I'm a little tilted right now because one thing that I'm really mad I didn't pull the trigger on was Max Fried under 14.5 pitching outs. It was standing out on the board earlier on Odd Shopper, and I just didn't do it. And he's up to 22 pitches already in the first, and his first start in over 2 weeks. And so I'm going to be watching that game alongside, breaking down one game in the NFL streets. But God, Philly already up 1-0 here. I'm on the under of 8 of this one, so that got a little bit thinner. But Max Fried, sometimes it's not the bets that you lose, it's the bets that you don't make that you know you would have won.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is, and I know people, it's like if we're on a baseball show, we talk about football, people are we're going to really upset people talking about baseball on a football show here.
You're fine.
But the idea that the Braves are at some massive disadvantage because they got to pitch Spencer Strider in game 1 of the series, and then the Phillies got to pitch Ranger Suarez because the Braves had the extra time off. Fuck off with that. The system, the system is clearly advantageous to the team that gets the extra rest as opposed to the team that has to play the extra series. That's not the narrative right now because the Dodgers lost game 1 of their series. The Braves lost game 1 of their series. But it's baseball. Random shit happens. Somebody wrote an article about how many games a series would have to be played to normalize the results. So just a guess before we start talking about football, Eric. How many games of a series you think it would take for us to fairly determine the best team is in a baseball series?
Oh, man. I mean, that's a tough question because we talk about sample size all the time where what is a 1 season sample size, sometimes we disregard based on certain results. So I'm going to say off the top of my head, 40.
75 game series.
Okay. Honestly, I was going to go way higher and then I went way lower than I was thinking.
So the point being is the best team isn't going to win all these series. The best team isn't going to win the World Series. It doesn't mean that the team that has a bye is at a disadvantage, which is total nonsense. The Phillies had to win an extra series. In addition to that, the rotation isn't set up in the same way as the Braves. If the Phillies end up winning, so be it. It doesn't mean the system is rigged in any way against the Braves. It's not because of the 5 days off. Just because they didn't play as well. Football to talk about now. We've got the Raiders. We have got the Packers. And before we get into this, Eric, who are we picking to win the game?
You asked me that last week. I mean, obviously, we built our lineups as though we wanted the Bears to win. And then that is surely what happened. Should have had an even better night. If somebody other than DJ Moore could have caught a football, that would have been enjoyable. But I'm definitely on the side of the Raiders here for this one. I think this line has moved enough towards their direction where it kind of freaks me out. I'm not going to be betting it at 2.5 or anything of that nature. It's gone and flipped from the 1 that it opened at on the other side of it to the 2.5 in favor of the Raiders. But I do just think from a skill player perspective, I mean, Aaron Jones, he's one of those hashtag running backs that matter. Without him out there, it's just another spot where is Jordan Love good enough to go out and win you a road football game here in this spot? Maybe, but we don't have enough of a sample size on him. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's funny because it's you look at the comments about him on social media. It's 1 week. It's oh my God, look at the Packers have gotten another great quarterback. How lucky is this team? Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love. And now it's like the narrative after last week is like, boy, they need hopefully they keep losing so they can get a good quarterback next year. So
can we get Caleb Williams?
Yeah. So who knows how good he is? I just think that, the cat is very much in the bag still before we find out how good Jordan Love is or isn't at football. To me, I think the line should be about a pick 'em. It's cool with the Raiders I'm cool with the Raiders being a slight favorite with the fact that they are home. I think this game is pretty close to a toss-up. If you assume home field advantage worth about 2.5 points, we're looking at these teams being about even on paper, which more or less makes sense to me. Yep. I'll side with the Raiders because they're at home, but minimal confidence. Unlike if you remember on Thursday, I just went with the Bears because I was like, who knows who's going to win this game? But the Bears are massive underdogs, so why not just side with the variance? Like, this is close to a pick'em game. I'll go with the home team here in the Raiders. And now let's start breaking down those quarterbacks, Eric, because we've talked about just a second ago, Jordan Love, been super inconsistent this year, but there's clearly an upside to him. As for Jimmy Garoppolo, he's been consistently meh over the course of his career, also consistently injured over the course of his career. He's going to be playing today after sitting out last week's game. Between Jordan Love and Jimmy Garoppolo, who's your preferred option at quarterback tonight?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Jordan Love probably still. I mean, his utility optimal is sitting around 49.4%, 44.1%. In the other direction there's actually a larger disparity right now for Jimmy Garoppolo going that direction. But again, just the slight favorites being the Raiders. And I think everybody's going to be playing the skill position players with them. And I feel like we have it projected pretty darn well here with Garoppolo, but the hand builders are so hard to figure out what's going to happen in some of these spots. And I feel as though Jimmy Garoppolo gets steamed up a little bit more. Jordan Love also carries the higher top percentage, but going to be a top scorer from this game, 11.8% of the time. Jimmy Garoppolo just 4.8%. I think that makes me more inclined to try to take shots on him in that captain spot, although it's negatively leveraged and it's positively leveraged going to Jimmy Garoppolo right now. So inherently, Jordan Love is the guy that I prefer, but it's just it's going to be pretty close. My exposure, I'm going to have a lot of both of them here, kind of similar to last week. You needed Howell, you needed Fields. There was no question who you needed in the captain spot. It wasn't either of those two, but I definitely feel confident looking at my lineups that I'm going to have nearly 50% of both of them, and I'm just fine with that in the utility.
Yeah, if I look at my utility ownership, it's funny. So on DraftKings, I have 84 lineups of Jimmy Garoppolo in the utility. I have 84 lineups of Jordan Love in the utility. I get a little bit more of Jordan Love in the captain spot, though. As far as FanDuel, I have a little bit more of Garoppolo in the utility spot. I have more of Jordan Love in the MVP spot. So all this says to me, what, based on my exposure? If I'm picking between the two and you guys are only building one lineup, I lean towards Jordan Love. I do think he's the more upside of the two quarterbacks. And that's what we care the most about in some of these tournament settings and really top-heavy payouts that we have on FanDuel and DraftKings for single game slates. So I'm going to lean towards Jordan Love, but I think both of them are good options. Like, I wouldn't write off either of them in this spot. And it seems like you're more or less on the same page with that.
Yes, I am.
All right. We have a super chat here from Michael Perlman. And Mr. Perlman wants to know. Okay. So he's asking, so it looks like this is a yearly trade question.
Yes, it is.
All right. So I'm assuming this is Kyren Williams. This is where there are so many Watsons that this becomes tricky.
Here's the thing. Khalil Herbert's going to be out in the second part of the equation, but DJ Moore and ETN are so much more valuable to me than Watson's going to get healthier here as we go along. I'm assuming
is it Deshaun
or is it
Christian?
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal, I guess, there. I'm assuming it's Christian because they're all three skill position players. That might make more sense for the trade, but Watson will continue to get healthier. He does have big playability. Didn't play a whole heck of a lot here last time out, but still think that he can provide some upside later in the season as it goes along. But Khalil Herbert's going to be out for a while. He has a high ankle sprain.
Justin Herbert, I think.
There you go. See, gigantic difference.
So it's funny. I read this as Christian Watson and Khalil Herbert, and it's Deshaun Watson and Justin Herbert.
Okay. I want Justin Herbert, DJ Moore, and Travis Etienne over the first combination for sure. Not close. Travis Etienne turned into a bell cow on Sunday. I know a lot of people didn't watch it because it wasn't on the main slate for DFS, and it was a standalone 6:30 a.m. on the West Coast slate. But Travis Etienne is smashing Tank Bigsby is not doing anything from an analytics perspective, and now it has shown up in the carries here. Whatever happened week 1 is just an anomaly. Travis Etienne has been a bell cow here. Get him and DJ Moore and Justin Herbert over that first combination instantly and don't think twice.
Yeah, so like each individual player, I like more in the second spot because it's like we've got quarterbacks here, right? Justin Herbert versus Deshaun Watson. I like Justin Herbert more than Deshaun Watson. No questions asked. We've got 2 wide receivers, Nico Collins versus DJ Moore. I prefer DJ Moore. No questions asked.
Yep.
And then it's ETN against Williams, and I prefer ETN. No questions asked. So pretty straightforward.
I mean, the question would have been asked if Kyron Williams had just kept playing 100% of snaps here, and he's still doing pretty much that. But like, I really liked Jacksonville. Ended up betting Jacksonville money line for the Buffalo game. They stayed over in Europe. Buffalo comes over to Europe for the first time. Felt like just a trappy spot for Buffalo to run into. But also Trevor Lawrence is playing awesome football. I believe he was the second highest rated quarterback in PFF's grading, higher graded than Josh Allen going into that football game. I really like Jacksonville's offense. Think they're great buy lows, and now it's gotten consolidated again because Zay Jones got hurt again. So Kirk, Ridley, ETN, that's a combination you want the rest of the year.
And because somebody asked about it in the YouTube chat, yes, this is a Dare shirt. If you guys are, if anybody
just say no to drugs unless you're Greg.
Well, so it's what is it? Drug abuse resistance teaching or something like that, I think it is. And to me, I think
drug abuse resistance.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think the best way to learn is with experience.
Education is the last one.
Yeah. So for me, I think the best way to educate yourself and learn and be informed is with experience, and firsthand experience would have to include doing the drugs, which is why I proudly only do drugs wearing this shirt now ever since I attained it.
Funny joke, Greg. Funny joke.
I'm just so anyway, good eye. Joe Lacatz in chat was the one who shouted out and noticed that I was wearing this. So I know a lot of people pay attention to the shirts that I'm wearing, and I appreciate it.
Ethan, my dude in chat. Hello. He will partake in some mushrooms. That's for sure.
There we go.
Those Greek men, I tell you.
Shout out to there's some funny follow-up comments in the YouTube chat. Appreciate you guys. And if you haven't done it yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. So let's talk about running back, because we have one massive piece of news that happened at running back, Eric, which is no Aaron Jones tonight. He's going to be out. With that being the case, AJ Dillon becomes the guy in the Packers backfield. Now, with that said, we saw AJ Dillon kind of shit the bed in this spot a couple of weeks ago when Aaron Jones was out. Before tonight, 1 game slate. How much are you going to prioritize playing AJ Dillon now that Aaron Jones isn't expected to play?
I mean, this is just painful what we have to do here. He's been one of the most inefficient players in the NFL all season long. He's been complete dust, and every snap that he takes is a snap that could go to somebody else at the running back position. Has really no reception volume or anything else there. But all of that being said, it is very difficult to imagine a scenario where you don't have a lot of him MMEing today. It's just a super cheap piece. They really have shown no proclivity to play anybody else out there at the running back position, even though, like, if you had a better option, you would have him out there instantly. 5 carries against Detroit. That's the kind of problem we have. And that was even with Aaron Jones being hobbled, not really being all that efficient there in that game. I don't know what to make of AJ Dillon going forward, but all I know is for today against Vegas, he's facing a team that's 25th in rushing defense for the season, and he's going to get tons and tons of opportunity. It's 6,900 to play him in the captain spot on DK. Doesn't provide a ton of PPR relief, but in the utility, it is so hard to get away from playing him at 4,600. I have way too much of him.
He's my most rostered player on both DraftKings and FanDuel by
there you
mile.
Go. I have 68% of him. It's not fun.
Yeah, so way more of that for me. So when I ran lineups for DraftKings and FanDuel before this, so I'll include captain and flex ownership when I'm looking at this. When I do that, I have AJ Dillon in 96% of my top 150 lineups on DraftKings. This is after running everything through our Sims tool and seeing what ended up popping up as the top 150 highest ROI lineup. So DraftKings, 96%. A lot more of that is in the flex spot than in the captain spot, but
there you go.
A lot of it.
Well, how much did you get in the captain? Because I think that's kind of the fun thing to navigate through on these shows is For me, I don't generally like to get to some of these cheaper captains. You run into a lot of identical builds where AJ Dillon, you're probably running into spots where it's like Love, Dobbs, Watson, and you don't really get access to a mega ceiling here from AJ Dillon. It's hard to envision a lot of scenarios where I want to play a lot of him there.
So for me, I have 20.7% of him in the captain spot when I ran line. So that makes him my third most rostered captain over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I have 19% of him in the MVP spot and 58% in the flex spot.
Okay.
That was what I ended up getting to. So we'll see. One thing that could change is maybe as we get closer to lock, if his ownership goes up, then it could be something where our Sims tool says like, hey, he's a little bit too popular and I end up getting less of him. But right now that isn't the case. And it's telling me to play all of him right now. So
I need Jordan Klein to take a picture of chat. Sean V. Josh can really learn from me in MLB. I need you to send that to Josh immediately.
I agree as well, Sean. What is it that you think that he could learn from you? It's a good follow-up question. I'm curious to see.
Very curious.
Also, you should message, because Josh is on Twitter. I assume he has you blocked, but if he doesn't, I think you should give him, you should respond to some of his tweets and give him that advice, because I agree with you. I think he needs it, and he should hear it from you right now. Also, I got a follow-up question because somebody's speculating that I'm on PEDs. I only take one performance-enhancing drug, Eric, and it is gas station
Viagra.
victims.
Oh.
No. Well, so same page, but I'm like the gas station ones. You take these things, number one, they're going to give you a headache. And two, they are so strong because all of the blood goes to one part of your body that you actually see stars. Like you get dizzy from it and your vision gets blurred.
You're a fucked up person, Greg.
That's what the Dare shirt is for, because you have to educate yourself.
No, because I dared you to do it. So then you had to do it. That's the rules.
No, I guess I dare myself to do it from time to time, but I'm just
shaving an air.
Once again, I'm just educating the people on the things that exist out there in the open market and the free world.
Gas station digger.
So to be more specific, actually, it's bodegas in New York. If we're being like really, really specific. And this is, if you go to one of these places and you request for one, they know what it does for. They just start laughing because they know what is going to end up happening.
Unbelievable.
There's a certain amount of detail I feel like I gave to that where people will really recognize that that's a true story.
You were a special human. Can't wait for NBA. It's going to be great. We'll be telling these stories leading up to lock. That'll be perfect. Yeah. I mean, we can't get away with this. NBA shows fly. They're over in like 2 seconds. NFL ones take 48 years when it's like a one game NFL slate.
Yeah, hey, you leave no stone unturned. And right away, CT in the chat knows what's up because he referenced Black Rhino, so he knows exactly.
Yeah,
that's another man who's had some similar experiences to me at the New York bodegas. By the way, somehow the Braves are still only down 1-0. Last I looked, Phillies are like the bases loaded, so they did.
They got out of that, and then Zach Wheeler just mowed him down in the first.
Are there any of the running backs you're considering playing from the Packers today? Is Patrick Taylor, Emmanuel Wilson, either of these guys worth exposure in your opinion?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to have some Wilson, 6.1%, just chilling down there. I'm north of that here at the moment, so that's cool. For me, it's just, I have so much Devontae Adams, so much Josh Jacobs in the captain spot. I think a lot of people are. They are by far your highest projected players from this game. Jimmy Garoppolo, pretty flat at the quarterback position. I'm going to be finding ways to get different around those two. And it seems the path of least resistance is, hey, A.J. Dillon's terrible at football. We kind of all know it. So go and try to take some shots on either one of them here. It is still a competitive game, competitive spread here. And there are going to be a lot of passing down opportunities for other guys to have here. Patrick Taylor, he at least can get mixed in that regard like he did it in week 3. He got assigned back to the 53-man roster for this game, but 3 catches on 4 targets there in week 3. That's decent enough for me where you're talking the min down there at 200. He's my most rostered $200 player.
Yeah, we've got both Patrick Taylor and Emmanuel Wilson, $200. They're both going to be playing some sort of role for the Packers. What it is remains to be seen. But I think both of them do make sense as somewhat contrarian low-cost options. You got Patrick Taylor, 13% on, which is fairly low for a one-game slate. And then you got Emmanuel Wilson at 6% on DraftKings. I think we should talk about them maybe a little bit different on FanDuel just because the pricing is so much different, where it's not always needed unless, you get like a Jordan Mason like last night who ends up going crazy in garbage time of a game. But for DraftKings purposes, Patrick Taylor, Emmanuel Wilson, these are your two best $200 options on the slate. Would you agree with that as far as DK is concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, again, Patrick Taylor, because of the passing game rule, I think he'll play behind AJ Dillon. So he's my priority for it. But on FanDuel, again, if you end up having it be Wilson who gets mixed in for maybe a goal line touch or something of that nature, my God, you're getting such leverage going to him on this slate. So I have a lot is relative. I have like 12 and 6% of them. But I do prefer the Taylor side of things for DraftKings, probably prefer the Wilson side of things for FanDuel.
Okay. Yeah. And over on FanDuel, just so you guys know, no need to consider either of these guys in the captain/MVP spot, but Patrick Taylor is projected for 8% ownership on FanDuel. And then you've got Emmanuel Wilson projected for 4% ownership. So in the MVP ownership, non-existent as it should be. So very, very low owned players. And I'm overweight to each of them on both sites in my initial runs. It's not guys who I'm getting to like 20% of or anything like that, but Patrick Taylor projected for 8% ownership. I have him in 10% of lineups here. Then Emmanuel Wilson at 4%. I have him in 8% of lineups over on Fantasy. Like both of them taking dart throws on them. I think it makes sense, especially in a scenario where, like, let's say Davante Adams has a big game, Josh Jacobs has a big game. The quarterbacks, like, you're just going to need to have a cheap option to go to on FanDuel if those guys go off. And in that kind of scenario, it's not hard to see how like 2 or 3 points from a Wilson or a Taylor can end up being in a winning lineup. So from that standpoint, I really do think that it makes sense to target those guys, even if you don't expect them to score the most fantasy points in the world. Other side of the game, in the backfield for the Raiders, we have Josh Jacobs. And one thing that I noticed, Eric, when I reran lineups after Aaron Jones was deemed not expected to play, I ended up getting to a lot more of Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams because of the amount of salary that opened up for us. You had Aaron Jones taken off the table as a pay up option. You had AJ Dillon become a great pay down option. Then where are you going to spend the salary? Oh, the 2 skill position players are the highest projections on the slate in Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams. So I think Jacobs is a great option, but I don't really think you're going to disagree in any kind of significant way. Do you have a preference, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but between Jacobs or Adams? I think this is going to be a decision point for a lot of people. If you have a lineup that doesn't play both of them, do you have a preference between Adams and Jacobs?
Davante Adams, for sure. Davante Adams has a ridiculous role in this offense. He's somehow exceeded his usage, exceeded the usage that we were expecting for what he had from 3 seasons ago during Aaron Rodgers' MVP campaign. 18 touchdowns, 14 there last season in Vegas there alongside Derek Carr, which, he may or may not be dust at this point in time. But I feel pretty confident that Davante Adams, when you're talking about somebody who has over 50% of his team's air yards, and just it's an incomparable, he is by far the guy in the NFL, 38.2% target share. You never see those kind of numbers for a wide receiver. It is absurd. And so through 4 weeks, he's the guy who's got the highest usage. We saw only the one super ceiling game that we've really had here, but there are so many scenarios and range of outcomes where 20, 25, that could end up being the leading scorer in an absolute gotta have it type situation. And Davante Adams, he gives you unrivaled floor, unrivaled ceiling, and the shoulder, considering he came back into the game and played pretty efficiently at the end of last week. I don't really have that many concerns about it. I think it's a little bit overhyped coming into this game. So I'm firmly on the side of, hey, if people want to see the Q tag and in any way, shape, or form reduce their ownership, I will gladly take it.
We've got 2 kickers in this game. And, we're going to be talking about kickers a little bit later, but we have a super chat from Dahmer707. He wants to know what our thoughts on the Carlson brothers narrative. So I don't really like getting to either of them relative to their ownership because we have AJ Dillon to go to for a cheap option. So in both DraftKings and FanDuel, I'm underweight to both of the Carlsons, underweight to Daniel Carlson, underweight to Anders Carlson. I have a little bit more of Daniel Carlson, but in the grand scheme of things, underweight to the 2 of them. Eric, answering the super chat we got here, what do you make of the Carlson brothers narrative?
I'm already going to hate how much we see their parents in the stands for this football game. We can all see it before the kickoff, before a field goal attempt. NBC does this, or not NBC, but ESPN does this worse than anybody, where it's just like, you thought Taylor Swift was bad. Just wait until the Carlsons kick every freaking field goal and the parents are up there cheering. Like, or until one misses one. That's going to be even more annoying. It's like, why are we watching this? This is stupid. Just keep the focus on the field. And yes, it's a cool narrative, I'm sure. Yada, yada, yada. If they interview them, I will go ballistic. I do not want to see an interview of the Carlson parents.
I want to see each of them go 0 for 3 kicking field goals in the game.
So watch one of them get cut after the game.
So a couple of things. Number one is I assume that whoever kicks more field goals instantly becomes the favorite of the parents. Fair to say?
As it should be. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one isn't allowed at Thanksgiving anymore. So there's a very, very high stakes for this game. But like I said, I'm underway to both of them. So as far as the kicker narrative with the two being brothers, they're just not the best value plays on the slate, in my opinion, relative to what the projected ownership is. And the biggest point, we've got AJ Dillon, who's priced very similarly to them on DraftKings. Like who's going to score more fantasy points in all likelihood? A kicker or the starting running back for the Packers that doesn't really have a lot of competition for snaps and touches. So with that said, kickers underweight for me. If I had to pick one of them, I'm going to be going with Daniel Carlson, who's the Raiders kicker, by the way, for anybody who's wondering which one is on which team. Other running backs for the Raiders. Oh, and by the way, one other thing I should point out. I like Josh Jacobs in both DraftKings and FanDuel. On DraftKings, I prefer Devontae Adams to Jacobs. On FanDuel, I'm getting to more of Josh Jacobs than Adams. Okay. That's just a factor of the 1 point PPR bonus versus the half point PPR bonus. So both of them, though, I think they're easy to get to, especially with the AJ Dillon situation where it just opens up all kinds of value.
Well, last week's target share was pretty wild. 8 for 11 for Josh Jacobs. That was fascinating. Obviously, different quarterback, so that'll do it. Aiden O'Connell confirmed will make Josh Jacobs PPR god.
And everybody else trash because Aiden O'Connell is terrible.
He's not good. He can throw the ball to Josh Jacobs, like next to him. Here, you take this. Go.
Do you have any interest in Amir Abdullah or Zamir White?
I have interest in terms of like they exist on a slate and they can be contrarian, but how do you not prefer just taking shots, looking at the ownership of the Green Bay pieces that are just cheaper, that have a clearer path to being on the field? Like barring injury, Josh Jacobs, barring some kind of, mixed in on a random third down to give him a breather and Amir Abdullah takes a swing pass to the house. Like I don't see as much upside there. I'm far more inclined to just play more of the Green Bay ground game in this one.
That's where I'm at as well, especially because, what are we realistically getting out of the Amir Abdullah Zamir White combination? Unless Josh Jacobs gets hurt, probably almost nothing. Whereas at least on the Patrick Taylor, Emmanuel Wilson, there's an actual void that needs to be filled. They're just far more likely to be on the field, get snaps, get touches. So if I'm going cheap at running back, pretty easy for me to say I'd rather go to Patrick Taylor or Emmanuel Wilson than either Amir Abdullah or Zamir White. Anything else you want to add about the running backs, Eric? If not, we'll start to build some lineups in the lineup generator.
Yeah, I think one of the nice things about the lineup generator, one of the nice things about the Sims tool is for me, God, Sims has me getting so much AJ Dillon captain. It is just absolutely insane. It is so insane how much AJ Dillon captain I have right now. But I am forcing myself into more Devontae Adams. Again, I reduced A-Chain the other day. That didn't go so well. Mr. A-Chan goes completely berserk yesterday, and that was me kind of doing a manual override. Might be doing a manual override of A.J. Dillon. So, hey, you should just play him in the captain spot here at running back and move on with your life. That's my last thought.
Make it an Emmanuel Wilson override.
Oh, my dear sweet Jesus. This is what my life's become, is jamming $200 running backs on one game NFL slates of a game that I don't really have any interest in watching compared to the Dodgers Diamondbacks game, but such is life.
What time are those games going to be overlapping?
Yeah, 45 minutes apart. So you got, It's like 6:07, 5. Well, I guess it's 5:15. So yeah, nearly an hour apart, but definitely going to be overlap, especially considering the Dodgers. They are going to rotate through some bullpen pieces if things go bad for Bobby Miller. It's going to be It's going to be 14 pitching changes in that one. Can't wait, because they had a day off yesterday, so every bullpen arm is just, not that they wouldn't be available on a back-to-back anyway, but like they will just unload the clip.
Do you think Clayton Kershaw is available tonight?
He wasn't available. He wasn't available then. Like, what are we talking about?
He didn't pitch very deep into the game.
Sure didn't. I was going to say, maybe you just fire him up again. If you're down 9-0, maybe you give him the old, go get him, pal. Go. Actually, that would be your punt. That would be your absolute punt there, is playing Clayton Kershaw. I am playing that showdown slate. I'm a disgusting person.
Let's build some lineups in the the lineup generator here, which, by the way, if you guys haven't checked this out yet, this is the easiest tool that we have to use over at stochastic.com for newer DFS players. Or if you're short on time, you just want lineups built for you. Maybe you're somebody who's been playing, but you aren't profitable yourself. Whatever the reason might be that you want to check out our lineup generator here, it is the easiest tool we have to use over at stochastic.com. There's only a couple of buttons that you have to click, and it is going to build lineups that are expected to make money in the long run for you. We will start with DraftKings here, Jordan Klein. We'll go all lineups. Is there a specific game script you want to put in here, Eric? High scoring, low scoring, blowout, anything along those lines?
I picked last week. I'll let you pick this time.
I think we each picked one last week. You picked one for, you picked the DraftKings one. I picked the FanDuel.
Yeah, I picked a lower scoring for Washington, Chicago, just to see what that looked like. Did not look like that in any way, shape, or form. Let's do the reverse of what I was looking at before. Green Bay, let's go +6 for them. Vegas -6. Vegas isn't a good football team. It wouldn't surprise me if Green Bay went out and won this football game in any way, shape, or form. That's not why I'm not betting it. I'm looking in the prop market. I saw +125 on Adams. It's now moved inside of +115 for an anytime touchdown. I feel pretty good about that one. But otherwise, let's mix up the game script here.
Davante Adams officially ruled active. Not surprising, but good to have that confirmation. So
Jair Alexander confirmed active. Here's the thing, is that he's a shadow corner. He's going to be tracking around Adams throughout the field. And it's one of those like overhyped things cornerback matchups are in general. Like, this is Davante Adams. He can win in any matchup whatsoever, but he's got a dinged up shoulder, and Jair Alexander has a dinged up abdomen. So like, there's at least some range of outcomes where like one is skewed towards the other and something goes very, very poorly for one of them. Like Alexander gets completely mauled on the field, or Davante Adams just doesn't have it because he can't move with a shoulder or something. But like, I don't know how you factor that in. So like, don't just go off projections because it's already baked in.
There you go. Yeah. And it's included in the prop market and all that as well. Yep. It's not one of these, like, people think, like sports books, they don't know that this team is traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast. All that shit is baked in. So,
I mean, if you can speculate the injury correctly, like you do that in the NBA all the time, where it's like, hey, I think Jokic is going to sit, and then the line moves infinity and you've got massive value. But like, this isn't one of those situations. Like, unless we heard something, unless we had visible evidence of them warming up and looking terrible, I don't really know what you do to adjust for it.
Let's look at some of these lineups here where we have got a good amount of exposure to A.J. Dillon. No shock here. We've got him out of the 20 lineups that we built. He's in 65% of them in the flex. And then what is that? 25% in the, or 20. So overall, we have a little bit over 90% exposure to A.J. Dillon. All of our data and tools love A.J. Dillon today. And I see people in the chat are saying like, hey, he's terrible. He sucks. Yeah, but you know who else sucks? Pretty much everybody who's involved in this game, and he's cheap and he's gonna have an opportunity. So A.J. Dillon makes sense from that standpoint. As far as pay-up options go, Davante Adams, Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, getting to all of them a whole bunch. Anything that stands out to you or that you're noticing in any kind of way that something might stand out to you about these lineups, Eric?
Just that we're all playing A.J. Dillon, and what a time to be alive.
One thing that stands out to me, do you see who our third most rostered captain is here?
Well, wasn't it Jordan Love?
No, it's the Packers. It's the Packers defense. So part of that, it's
really?
because of the
the game script I threw in. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did a game script, which is Packers to win by blowout, right? Well, not exactly by blowout, but like the up arrow for the Packers, down arrow to the Raiders. So a game script that favors the Packers to win by a more considerable margin. In that kind of scenario, if you guys are building lineups for that game script, that's where the Packers defense comes into play. And you could really see a lineup where it's like, hey, Packers, A.J. Dillon, if you're playing for that kind of game script, then you got the salary to pay up for whatever you want. in
It's
the
so
rest
cool
of
that
the
we're
line.
able to have that work and be implemented immediately. If you have a contrarian take on a football game, if you have a specific take for a football game, you can take that take and you can make lineups for it immediately. That's really, really cool.
So we have, just kind of curious here. Cozy Sean said that he just made a lineup and every player's name starts with a J. Want to guess what that lineup might be?
Yeah, Josh Jacobs, Jordan Love, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Myers,
Jaden Reed.
Jaden Reed. And who's the last one that we're looking for? We got to look for a cheapie. Josiah DeGuara.
Is that who it is?
Got to be Josiah DeGuara.
Who is he? Is he Jason Momoa's character from Game of Thrones?
Say, well, there's like a little bit of Jason Momoa. There's a little bit of like a Haka, like New Zealand dance action to the name. And like, he's got the beard, right? From what I remember, Josiah DeGuara. He's got like the tattoos. Yeah, Josiah DeGuara.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to know what Josiah DeGuara looks like. I've only seen him in a helmet, and even then, it's probably only been a few times in my life. So I don't know. Yeah. Haven't spent that much time with him outside of the helmet and
We're
shoulder.
best friends. That's that.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same way about you. When you said we,
there was a call that somebody called me a friend on recently in recent days, and I'm still embarrassed by it. I still think about it to this day. I can't talk about it here on this program.
Do you ever have a time where somebody calls you a friend, or says that, like, you're one of my best friends, and then you realize you don't remember what their name is,
or you like wouldn't go to their wedding in a million years? Yeah, I've had that before.
Oh, I've got one of those ones for sure that I would not talk about right here, because I did get invited to somebody's wedding, and he called me about it and the whole thing. I was like, I have no intention of traveling to this.
My firm and fast rule is that if I'm not going to be in the wedding, if somebody invites me to be in the wedding, it would be a very disingenuous thing for me not to attend and not to be a part of it. Even if I'm like, oh, this isn't my best friend in the world and I have to fly to wherever, I want to take special care of like your day and make sure that, like, if they're asking me that, I would assume that I've never had anybody ask me that wasn't close enough to me where it made sense. But like, I've heard of people who didn't end up attending stuff like that. And I'm like, that's a little bit strange to me, but I have one person in mind where it's like, pretty sure there's a chance they might ask me to be in their wedding. And I'm pretty positive that I'm going to have like chores to do on that Saturday.
And how many months out
good people
chores to do? How many months out did you have chores to do?
So, 6 months from now, my wife is going to tell me that I can't go because she doesn't like you, and nor do I. So there it is.
There you go. Hey, chores. You could just pencil them in. You got chores every day for the next 6 months. Can't go to the wedding.
I'm on the roof. I know I'm going to be on the roof that Sunday in July.
We have a super chat from Green Checkmark. And then, Jordan, we'll look at some FanDuel lineups. So be prepared to look at FanDuel in a second here, because we'll build some lineups out for that. No, NFL, you clicked on the MLB one, you doofus. Go back.
Not that I was talking about you during that, Jordan Klein.
Yeah, no, it wasn't
totally
Jordan. No. It couldn't be Jordan wedding, because he will never get married because nobody will ever love him. So it's totally different. We were not talking about you, Jordan. Don't worry. It's not a concern. Green check mark. DK, 3 max captains. Love, JJ, Dylan. And Jordan, we were talking before about clips to pull from the show. That's a good one. We should consider that for Twitter. Green check mark. DK, 3 max captains. Love, JJ, and Dylan. So Josh Jacobs, Jordan Love, AJ, Dylan. If I was only playing 3 lineups with 3 captains, I would replace Jordan Love with Devontae Adams.
Sure.
Also, by the way, how ironic is it that right after I make that cut, we get a question about Jordan Love right after I ask that question. After I brought
he has love in his last name. Jordan Klein doesn't even have love in his heart. Oh man. Incredible. The delivery sometimes, Greg, I could definitely tell you come from stand-up because it's just so clean. It's too clean. Oh,
I like you a lot though, Jordan. Like strong, like. Just not quite more than that. How about you?
That wasn't nearly as good a presentation.
Well, I don't want to make him feel bad now.
Okay. Yeah. He's not going to turn his camera back on the rest of the show. I want to guarantee it.
Answer for you, by the way, if you're going with three, you're playing three lineups, three different captains. Who would those three be?
Oh, you're asking me. Three different lineups, three different
who
captains?
else do you think I'm asking? You think I'm
I would
asking?
have two. Well, yeah, no, I suppose I'm on this show again. Sorry, I'm back. It definitely would be. I can tell you right now because I have my 3 max stuff. I have 2 Devontae Adams, 1 Josh Jacobs.
So same answer for both of us.
Oh, that's you did the same. Cool.
Yeah. He had Jordan Love, and I replaced him with Devontae Adams.
I repeat, the AJ Dillon thing, I'm probably going to have to play some more of it now that I'm looking at our contest sim and finished out everything with my boosts and everything the way that I want to. Might have to have a little bit more, but like you play a cheap captain, it's like play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Like you're going to win way, way less playing cheap captains over any long sample size because it's just so difficult to get the highest score in the game. They're almost always going to come from that upper echelon of talent. And the times where it does work out, you're going to get paid so much less because everybody who plays them in the captain is going to have the same damn lineup. It's just so hard to get away from some of the overlap here. AJ Dillon's a little bit different. He's kind of falling into mid-range. He's above the Packers defense, above both of the kickers there, above, what we're looking at, the Raiders defense. So there's more of a path for me to be able to get different and play more skilled position players and build out lineups that way. But God, it is feeling very frustrating how much more AJ Dillon I'm getting to in the captain spot.
Let's check out some FanDuel lineups now and click Contrarian this time, Jordan. Yeah, Contrarian, and just go neutral game script at the top. So just standard projections, and then save 20. We'll see what ends up popping up on FanDuel here. So we're going just the normal game script, but Contrarian lineup, see what it is that we ultimately end up getting to here. And by the way, like I said before, guys, if you haven't checked out our lineup generator, sign up using the link below. You get access to this, and we've got the showdown slates in here. We've got the main slate, so you're getting access to it and good value a few times a week on some prominent slates. Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, and then Sunday main slates as well. Building Contrarian lineups, and if you're building lineups under this pretense, you do get to a little bit less of A.J. Dillon for us here. We've got A.J. Dillon 45% in the flex spot. What about the MVP?
Yeah,
AJ Dillon in the MVP. Was he not in any of them? Or did I just miss it? Yeah, didn't know. So if we're building Contrarian lineups, didn't really get to AJ Dillon in the MVP spot. We're getting to a ton of Josh Jacobs, Jimmy Garoppolo, Devontae Adams. So underweight to AJ Dillon in this kind of build. And then as far as Contrarian players we're getting to Musgrave. We're getting to Jaden Reed, who's Contrarian on FanDuel. We're also getting to both Taylor and Wilson a little bit in some lineups, overweight to each of them. So, Eric, we haven't talked much about pass catchers, and that's going to be the next thing that we're talking about here. We have already kind of mentioned Devontae Adams. I don't know how much more we need to talk about. He's fairly obvious for the slate. Who is your favorite Contrarian pass catcher in the game?
Definitely Jacoby Myers. It's just a ridiculous offense that the Raiders are running, and it's so consolidated towards him and Devontae Adams. I mean, Adams getting a 38.2% target share, 24.1% target share there for Jacoby Myers over the course of the season. You've got a 52.7% air yard share, 29.5 for Jacoby Myers. They are legitimately, between the two of them, over 80% of this team's air yards. No Hunter Renfrow really getting mixed in whatsoever. It is just insane. You got Reed, you got Dobbs, you got Watson. And I know that I think you're going to get some box score watchers who saw Dobbs getting there and getting targeted at a high clip. As Watson continues to get healthier, I think that's going to dilute the upside for each. Not that they both can't get there, that Watson can't have a big playability, but like, I do think just because of the uncertainty I have about what Watson's snap share is going to look like, he didn't really get anything, 12% target share in that first game. I don't love getting to him as like your contrarian piece. I'm far more interested in Jacoby Myers.
What's his ownership at? Let's see. And it's, it's kind of a loaded question when I ask you favorite contrarian play, because there's never anything that's like too crazy contrarian on a showdown slate. Like, it's not like we're going to predict like a 2% guy that nobody's heard of to go out and catch a touchdown or anything like that. But I mean, we do have Jacoby Myers at 35% ownership on DraftKings. Like that's contrarian-ish, right? Where we've got, he's actually the second most popular wide receiver there. So maybe
yeah, he's pretty popular, but here's the thing. This is the case that I can make for it. And hopefully this is something people can take and utilize this in their process too, where let's just say Davante Adams is really hurt and we don't know it. And he's going to get out there, play a couple snaps, and it's not going to go well. And he comes off the field, or he's just a decoy, or he's just in general inactive for most of the game. Jair Alexander out there shadow covering him. He's healthier than we expect. There's a lot of ways where there could be a tipsy-turvy kind of payout there. Jakobi Meyers, you straight out captain him without Davante Adams. I think that tells a story for this game that is pretty clear-cut for me. I think you can get to Jakobi Meyers captain without Davante Adams. It's not my preferred way to build. I'm very much in the camp that I don't know, and Davante Adams is there, but I'm just speculating that there are some interesting lineup builds you can have with Jakobi Meyers and the captain. And again, this is DFS. We're not beholden to just one lineup. We can build more than one lineup, more than one game script. I think that's a pretty interesting one to consider.
Yeah, and then so something else too, because Neil Orfield said, I'm not supposed to predict the 2% owned guy. Here's what, there are no wide receivers projected for 2% ownership on the entire slate. Every wide receiver is projected north of that. The lowest owned wide receiver is Trey Tucker, who is 4.7% owned. And at that point, I'd rather play the cheap Packers running backs who are also super contrarian. If we're looking to go like really low owned at wide receiver, I do like getting overweight to Jaden Reed, who's only projected for 20.8% exposure on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he is right now projected for, 18.9%. For a single game slate, like that is somewhat contrarian. So Jaden Reed is somebody who I like getting overweight to as a pass catcher, especially we don't know exactly what the workload is going to look like for Watson. I do agree with you, Eric. Obviously, as we go forward here, he's going to play more snaps. He's going to get more targets, but we don't know exactly how much he's going to get ramped up. And at least the way the field is playing it, it seems like they're generally off of Jaden Reed. So with that in mind, I do like getting overweight to Reed as a pass catching option. Anything else that stands out to you about these FanDuel lineups that we got to here? If not, we could talk a little bit more about the wide receivers in depth.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear cut. I think on FanDuel, I'm less inclined to get way off the board, although a touchdown from one of these guys can be extremely, extremely potent. So, getting to Christian Watson, I think makes some sense still. I'm not going to overemphasize the fact that I think it's pretty clear cut that he could have a wide range of outcomes for what his snap share ends up being, coming off of running around on just 48% of dropbacks. That's not very many. He didn't really play all that much. It was blowout as well. So it's hard to really know what I think it's a pretty wide range of outcomes. I think that's kind of his floor, is running a route on 50% of dropbacks, but I do think that there could be an untapped ceiling there. Really like getting to him on FanDuel.
All right, let's go and talk more about the wide receivers. And yeah, we've already talked about Davante Adams. Like, if you have the salary paying up for him, the only real discussion is him versus Josh Jacobs, in my opinion. DraftKings, I said I like Adams more. FanDuel, I like Jacobs a little bit more. As far as the mid-range receivers go, Eric, so let's group together, like Jakobi Meyers, Christian Watson, and Romeo Doubs, all of them together. And I guess we'll throw Jaden Reed into the mix as well. So Myers, Watson, Reed, Doubs. Rank those four wide receivers for me.
Jakobi Meyers, 1. Jaden Reed, 2 from a contrarian basis, even though I think from a projection basis, it's pretty accurate. Jakobi Meyers, 1, Jaden Reed, 2, Christian Watson, 3, Romeo Doubs, 4. I saw what everybody else saw with Romeo Doubs last week. You know what else that game was? It was garbage. They played awful. It was 13 targets and 12 targets he's had the last 2. I think everybody is going to click on Romeo Doubs based on those targets, especially if you're hand building, you're not using straight out projections. You should be using projections. It's just the better way to build. You should be using the Sims tool, the lineup generator, all of these things. But Romeo Doubs, that target share is going to continue to come down as Christian Watson gets inserted into this offense. And besides that touchdown catch, Christian Watson was pretty much ineffective, didn't really play nearly as much as anybody was hoping, who, if you had rostered him in that showdown, or if pretty much any format, if you had played him in season long or something. But I got to think that Christian Watson, if he just shows up healthy one of these days, it's going to get nuts as far as what his upside can be, because we saw it throughout all of last season. And I think you want to be early to the party on somebody like that. So I think because of the price, Reed, I'm just getting to a lot of 9,300 at the captain spot. I'm okay getting to that 6,200 at the flex spot. I like to get to Watson more. I think Dobbs is going to end up pretty damn popular.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with anything that you said right there. And then also with Dobbs, like you said, a lot of targets are probably going to be going down. But 2 weeks ago, he was targeted 13 times. He got 5 of 13 targets. That's not the best efficiency in the world. He is somebody who I do expect to. So I do expect ultimately for Jaden Reed to be a better receiver than Romeo Dobbs.
You do. That's awesome. I'm not sure what I think about those two. I think Watson's the highest upside wide receiver in this offense. I think what we saw last season was more indicative of like the type of player that he's got the ceiling for. Romeo Dobbs has like the big body for it, but I'm with you where I do like Jaden Reed's skill set a little bit more. And then, yeah, I think Watson will end up being the wide receiver one there, but I think that's kind of the way that everybody thought about this in the best ball streets leading into it. And what if it ended up being Dobbs? What if it ended up being Reed? I think the jury's still kind of out, and we'll just have to be paying close attention as Watson gets acclimated to what these snap shares are. But for today, I'm just going to try to play. I'm going to just try to play some game theory here. And I do expect, just like you do, that Reed's going to be the lowest owned out of him. He's also the cheapest, so gives me a better chance to get different.
Couple of super chats to answer. First one is from Storm Sports. And Storm wants to know top 2 plays of the night and 1 sleeper. So for me, top 2 overall most rostered players on DraftKings, it's AJ Dillon and Devontae Adams. On FanDuel, it's AJ Dillon and Josh Jacobs. For you, Eric, who are your top 2 overall plays? And then we'll give out our sleeper for the other part of the question.
Yeah, no, it's definitely without a doubt, no questions asked, Adams and Jacobs.
Oh, no. For me, I had AJ Dillon in my top 2.
Oh, well, goddamn. It's going to be Adams. AJ Dillon is still behind those 2 for me.
Okay. Right. And then a sleeper. So, Eric, and you could interpret this however you want. Who is your sleeper of the night?
I want it to be Josiah DeGuara. No, it's not going to be Josiah DeGuara. Definitely going to be Patrick Taylor. From a pass game perspective, I think that there's an opportunity for him to get mixed in a little bit more. $200. I have increased my exposure throughout this show. Think that he makes the most sense. I also want to say Austin Hooper, because I think, any tight end who shows up and has touchdown equity like he does, I think there's an opportunity for him to be kind of the guy. Michael Mayer is not panned out for the Vegas Raiders. Like, let's just be dead serious about that. Austin Hooper, I will throw him as my pass catcher.
You don't play into the Michael Mayer in October narrative? These are important things, Eric.
No.
All right. We just got to make sure that we don't leave any stone unturned about dumb showdown narratives.
Oh my God. The Carlson with a Michael Mayer. I mean, just kill me now.
He might. That's what he does in October. I've seen the movies. For me, I'm going to say, just so I give a different answer than you, because I like both of them as cheap contrarian plays, I'm going to go Emmanuel Wilson instead of Patrick Taylor. I have more exposure to Patrick Wilson right now, but still, Emmanuel Wilson's 6% owned. He's easy to get overweight to the field too. He's only $200. And yeah, he should be getting touches today with Aaron Jones out. So I'll go with Emmanuel Wilson as a sleeper play for tonight. And then Einsteinium has left us a super chat. He says, instead of clicking Dobbs or Reed, why not Musgrave? Are you playing Musgrave at all tonight, Eric?
So Musgrave's had a pretty good role on this football team. If you've been watching anything there, but there's also been some wonky game scripts. And does it over 11 ADOT continue for him? I doubt it. But this is still a pretty decent role. He's projected pretty decently. I'm looking across the industry as well as over here at Stochastic. And, well, it's a lot better than what it should be. 4.4% captain ownership. He has 4.9% captain optimal percentage. So there's some positive leverage there. We have him a little bit negatively leveraged from the utility spot, just ever so slightly. I don't completely hate it. Any path to getting different where you're going to leave $2,000 or $3,000 on the table and you jump from a Watson or a Reed and you make that into him, I have no problem with it. I think the question I got asked earlier was, do I like Luke Musgrave as a captain or something? And not really. Wouldn't be in like my first 5-10 lineups for sure. But as you're building out to 150, yeah, I'm looking at Luke Musgrave. I have 3% of him. I'm fine with that.
Hornbots are back. They haven't been here since last basketball season. See, like they heard the Black Rhino talk. They shut up. Either that or they're getting geared up for basketball because they're just a couple weeks from now. Eric and I have been breaking down basketball. It's been a minute since we had NBA DFS to talk about. So pretty excited for that. But yeah, Hornbots back in the mix. Let's go and look at the tight ends on the other side of the game where, Hooper, Michael Mayer. I was getting to some of these guys earlier in the day as contrarian options, but that was before we had the A.J. Dillon becoming a great value in the absence of Jones. So I hardly have any exposure to Austin Hooper or Michael Mayer now. Based on what you said about Michael Mayer before, it kind of seems like you're on the same page, but is Austin Hooper somebody you're going to be rostering?
Yeah, I'm going to get to a little bit of Austin Hooper simply because, again, this is like trying to get different in a large field tournament. Give me some tight ends. Again, DeGuara, I don't like him as much as I like getting to the Hooper side of things. It's just one of those spots where, again, an inline tight end that could possibly get you some goal line work and give you that differentiation puts up 9. I mean, you just add 6 to his box score in any of these where it's 8.1, 10, 9. Any of those in those 3 outings where he's actually put up fantasy points, those become very interesting type contrarian pieces when you're talking about showdowns. So obviously you're not looking for volume. You're looking for a touchdown from him. And anytime I see tight ends that are sitting there under 2,000, my brain just thinks about how many times a Blake Bell or Noah Gray for Kansas City in showdowns. Some of these other tight ends that just, they only get you the one play, the one touchdown, but that can be enough from time to time. It's not like I'm looking at playing Patrick Taylor or Emmanuel Wilson to try to put up 8, 10. Like I would be ecstatic to get that from either one of them in this spot. They're projected for way less than that. So I would be more than happy to just roll the dice on some Austin Hooper still.
When I see a tight end for $2,000, it's Black Rhino time, Eric.
Get me out of here.
Only a couple minutes left to go. But before we sign off for the day, we got to tell people that we'll do our favorite captain and MVP plays before we log off here. But before we get to that, we've got a great Bet365 offer to tell you guys about, because if you haven't signed up at Bet365 yet, you sign up using the link we have below. And when you bet $5, just $5 over at Bet365, they give you $150 in bonus bets. That's a great way to build your bankroll. These deals don't really last for very long, so take advantage of them when they do end up popping up, because we never know when these are going to end. We had a Bet365 offer a couple of weeks ago, and we found on like 8 hours notice that they were closing it down. So take advantage of it if you guys haven't already. $5 into 150. It's a no-brainer. Easiest way to pad your bankroll. If you or anybody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. Also, a bet for today. I was opening up OddShopper to look at what lines exist on Bet365 that don't exist anywhere else. I think you might like this one, Eric. Romeo Doubs, his over-under for longest reception of the day is over under 20.5 yards. That's minus 115 on the under on Bet365. On DraftKings, it's minus 140 for the under 20.5. And FanDuel has the line at 18.5. So let's go sign up at Bet365 and bet Romeo Doubs for under 20.5 yards as his longest reception of the game. Now let's finish with this, Eric, before we turn this over to Loughran and Neil Orfield. And if you guys haven't done it yet, do us a favor, like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Who is your favorite captain / MVP play of the entire slate?
Devontae Adams, not close.
I'm going to go with A.J. Dillon. Dillon. Save yourself some money, and then you could pay up for whoever it is you want. Now, that's DraftKings specific. Over on FanDuel, we don't have to worry as much about salary. I'm going with Josh Jacobs in the MVP over on FanDuel. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Don't go anywhere. We got Live Before Lock. Another hour of football talk from Loughran and Neil Orfield. Stick around to check those guys out. Good luck with all your lineups tonight. See you back here tomorrow.
Probably not.
Pulling me away from the Phillies, man. That's okay. What's up,
You're gonna
dude?
make it. Okay, are we live now?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, I didn't realize we were live. Not the Twins aren't playing right now. I'm sorry that you have to. You can't fully pay attention to your Phillies game. But hopefully, I don't even know. I guess it sounds like Zach Wheeler is doing well. So apparently they're doing well.
He's doing okay. We'll see what happens. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL live before a lock. Green Bay Packers on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders. And we got some news this afternoon. No Aaron Jones. So that is a significant development in this one. Development in this game. And we're going to break all of it down today. We get to talk about A.J. Dillon, who Matt Kajeski described as the worst running back to touch the football all season long. So that should be fun. I'm Dave Loughran at Loughy_D on the Twitters. Give me a follow at Loughy, LOUGHY_D. And while you're there, say hello to Neil Orfield at PlayerQDFS. You may know him as the Showdown Shaman. We know him as a good man and someone who likes to talk Showdown football. What's up, brother?
That is true. I love talking Showdown football, and this is a fun game. And we've had some really awful Showdown slates. This one, at least, like two pretty good offenses. I would have liked it a lot better if Aaron Jones was playing. I guess from a non-Showdown perspective, I would have. From a Showdown perspective, I love that Aaron Jones is out because it opens up a lot of uncertainty with that Packers backfield. I think it's kind of a fun Showdown slate. This is my favorite. I think that we've talked about in a while.
I like it too. Pricing isn't too crazy. It's not too soft. And you also don't just have like the Showdown slates that I hate the most. And I know some people love them. I hate the like Chiefs Eagles type Showdown
Me too.
slates where you just like every line. That is where if you're using, like the lineup sims or something or an optimizer, it's better because anything you build by hand, you're going to absolutely hate.
Right. Do I want to play Rashee Rice or Sky Moore? It's just like I kind of hate Chiefs Showdown. Like I had a big win with Chiefs Showdown last year because I played Justin Watson, just got lucky with the like random Chiefs receiver in one of my lineups. But typically it's just like, yeah, you can choose one of these 6 guys. They all like play about 50% of snaps. It's ugly with the Chiefs. This is a lot more fun. It's more condensed, but then there's also some pieces that I think have a shot at hitting.
Well, let's get into it. Happy to have you guys with us. Very happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Greg and Eric, serviceable job, got us to 227, probably less because I just clicked it. I'm sure Neil did as well. I think 500's a realistic ask today. Just takes a single second. Atone for your sins here. The sinners, Neil, here on the Live Before Lock show.
The Simmers and Saints. That's what we're calling.
Yeah, I don't hate
it doesn't
that.
really work as like a nickname. Like it's I like the, as a thing, like could be like a headline, but like we're not going to like every time, hey, Simmers and Saints. I guess maybe we could, but
right.
I don't
Now
know.
that's kind
you're right. A little bit long.
We'll get to 5. Even if you have your pessimistic outlook on that, we'll get there. The people are good people who watch this show. But hey, if nothing else, guys, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Make sure you're always aware whenever any of our content drops. Appreciate you for supporting this show. And let's get into it. All right, so we always talk, man, I got to turn that light down in the back. That's wild. It doesn't look that crazy on
the
my
Raiders
screen.
one.
The Raiders
one.
Yeah,
it
doesn't look
the
that.
Raiders TV.
I have it at
50.
I have it at 50%. But boy, that thing is smoking. All right, let's see.
Yeah,
here.
it's not that bad. Like I haven't really, I wasn't paying attention to it until you said it, and then it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of bright.
Those Phillips Hue lights, man, they get the job done. Anyway, all right, let's talk about it. We got the quarterback position we can start with. Knowing you and myself, we'll probably move around a bit here, which is fine. A little game theory, some strategy, all of that stuff will make this a whole lot more fun. But at quarterback, you have Jordan Love, and I've said it more than once. The guy's actually been a pretty bad quarterback as far as like advanced metrics go. But from a fantasy standpoint, if you want to round up, he's been a 20-plus DraftKings points quarterback in 4 straight games to start his career as a starter for the Green Bay Packers. And on the other side, Jimmy G out of concussion protocol. the most interesting thing about him is that his concentrated target share. He's only played 2 games where Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams are both in. You and I talked about this on our Wednesday ownership show a couple weeks ago, but 40% target share to Adams in those games, 31% to Myers, and then everyone else is just a distant afterthought. So yeah, guys like Josh Jacobs coming off a 29% target share last week, but that was Aiden O'Connell. So I think like from a concentrated from a target distribution standpoint, you have a better idea of knowing where Jimmy Garoppolo is going to go, but you're also paying for guys like Adams. When it comes to Jordan Love, there's a lot of directions you can take, assuming Christian Watson gets back to a full-time workload. Romeo Doubs coming off a 13 target game. Jaden Reed is your slot guy. Musgrave not on the injury report. A lot of different directions to take on that Green Bay Packers side if you're going Jordan Love and want to pair him up.
Yeah, and then you throw in Dontavian Wicks in there, who I'm assuming is going to see his snap share drop pretty significantly at some point. Last week, he still had like a 58% snap share, even with Christian Watson back halftime. So, and it was Samori Toure who lost a lot more of his snap share. So I'm curious to see if Dontavian Wicks is going to continue to have a role here. Like, I wouldn't be shocked with Christian Watson coming back if Dontavian Wicks is playing like 5 snaps this game. I also wouldn't be shocked if he's playing, 30 or something. So it's kind of all over the board with Dontavian Wicks. But yeah, you're right. There's so many places that you can go with the Packers. A lot of different players that are likely to see some targets. Whereas the Raiders, it's like, well, we got, the 3 that are like very likely. Really just 2, like Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. Josh Jacobs will see some, but then it's like the tight ends are kind of mixed. Like, yeah, it's there's not as many players that you can really expect to see a lot of volume on the Raiders.
With that in mind, then, who do you like more at captain right now, Jordan Love or Jimmy Garoppolo? Is it still Love because he's got a bit of rushing upside? I mean, not a ton, but he's got some wheels. I mean, do you have a preference here, or are they pretty evenly matched? And we can, of course, turn to our top plays and single game showdown tool, which guides us along the way of these shows.
Yeah, I'm one step ahead of you there. I'm looking there because I'm like, man, I don't have a strong opinion about which one to play. I do think that Jordan Love, like, you can play Jordan Love in the captain in some lineups with just one pass catcher. It's really hard to do that with Jimmy G just because he's basically a statue out there. He has like rushes for like 4 yards per game or something ridiculous like that. Like Jimmy Garoppolo, you play him in the captain. I want to have at least 2 pass catchers in just about every line. Maybe you can have 1 or 2 if you're doing like a 150 set where you don't have multiple pass catchers. You're counting on him like throwing to somebody who's not in the player pool or something ridiculous like that. But typically with Jordan Love, you can play him in the captain spot with just 1 pass catcher. With Jimmy Garoppolo, you have to, I would say, play 2. Most of the time, I'm going to have 2 pass catchers with Jimmy G in the captain spot. So I think I prefer Jordan Love just because he does have a little bit of upside with his legs. But like we saw last week, like he didn't rush. He's not like an elite rusher. He rushes for like 18, 19 yards per game. He has a couple rushing touchdowns. The last game he got there just because he rushed or the last showdown slate that we did with the Packers on it. I talked about his rushing upside. And then I remember halfway through, Jesse downside of me was complaining, I fell for Jordan Love being a runner because he hadn't run at all. And then he happened to rush for a touchdown in that game. So like, there's no guarantee that Jordan Love is going to add anything with his legs, but he has 5 starts in his career so far, rushing for about 20 yards per game. I think I prefer him as the captain, but we actually have positive leverage on both. Oh, actually, sorry. We have Jordan Love at neutral. We have him at 9.3% captain ownership, 9.2% chance of being optimal in the captain. We have some positive leverage with Jimmy Garoppolo, 8.5% ownership, 9% chance of being optimal. That's basically neutral for both of them. So both of them, neither of them stands out. I think I slightly prefer Jordan Love, but it's not a really strong preference. Do you see it any differently?
No. Another reason I think I'd probably prefer Love here is because if they're going to get things going on the ground, or if they're going to get things going, I just have a really difficult time believing that they get it going on the ground. That is a real problem right now. And by the way, Jordan Love, in that game, that showdown site that we discussed with Detroit, where he scored that rushing touchdown, finished with a crisp -2 rushing yards in that game as well.
Is that right? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I had the over on rushing yards. I was tuned into that one. Did not hit. But you know what? If they don't get anything going on the ground, then AJ Dillon has just been like the most plodding running back we've seen all season long. It's been bad every time he touches the ball. They should really start giving. What's that?
I said so bad. 2.7 yards per carry. Yeah.
Yeah. They really need to start they brought Patrick Taylor back up for the 15th time this year. You're just going to need to you're going to have to give him something, see what he can do. But I don't have a ton of faith in the run game. On the other side, I know Josh Jacobs. You want to talk about someone that hasn't been able to generate much on the ground either? Josh Jacobs is a pretty damn good example of that. But the Packers have allowed 211 rushing yards in 2 different games. 211 to Detroit. Detroit carved them up on the ground with Montgomery. A lot of volume, maybe not the most efficiency, but it worked. Atlanta, 211 rushing yards between Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. Chicago in that win, 122 yards. The only team that didn't run for anything against them was New Orleans at 77 yards. Alvin Kamara was still suspended. Jamal Williams was out. They were rocking Tony Jones Jr. and Kendre Miller in his first game after coming off a prolonged injury. So I think, to me, Garoppolo can get there, but Jordan Love has the higher ceiling, because if he's going to get there and if they're going to produce, I think it's going to have to be on the arm of Jordan Love. And I don't think you're going to have it get a win with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I think he can do it to Adams, to Myers, but also Josh Jacobs in the backfield.
Right. No, that's a really good point. They have a much stronger ground game for the Raiders. I don't see a strong distinction between the two, but I like that additional point in favor of Jordan Love in the captain over Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that both are extremely viable. It's just a matter of how you play them, when you play them. I'm going to have probably 20% of each. That's generally the cap that I put on my captains. My guess is that I'm going to have 20% of each. I don't force it either with the quarterbacks, but that's probably what I'll have. I don't have a strong lean, but yeah, my slight lean would be Jordan Love over Jimmy Garoppolo in the captain spot.
Do you like them more at captain or more at flex, if we're talking both of these guys?
I think I like them more at flex in general. As I said, they both have neutral in the captain spot ownership versus optimal, but in the flex, you actually have a little bit of positive leverage on both. We have Jordan Love coming in at 44% projected util ownership, 49% chance of being optimal. We have Jimmy Garoppolo at 44% util ownership, 50% chance of being optimal. So both of them just look better in our single game tool in the utility. They just show up in the utility more often than they are owned. So yeah, I prefer both of them in the util. Allows you to get a little bit weirder in the captain.
Jace84 said, what's up, Lafayette and Neil? We know how terrible Dylan is, but I'm betting that with everyone not wanting to play him, chances are he breaks an 80-yard run for a touchdown and you'll need him at captain. Look, he's still in play today with no Aaron Jones. Until further notice, Matt LaFleur is still going to continue to run him out there as a starting running back. So don't get it confused when I say that he's terrible. It doesn't mean you can't play him. He's getting 35% ownership at the utility spot. The problem is 85 or 80-yard touchdown, 60-yard touchdown for Dylan. That's tough, dude. Like, I don't see any breakaway speed there. He's going to need to punch 2 of them in from the 2-yard line. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I just don't simply see a way where he's breaking off Aaron Jones type runs in any matchup.
Yeah, he's not the same player as Aaron Jones, but certainly has the ability, especially against this Raiders defense. It's not the best defense in the world. We have massive positive leverage on AJ Dillon. I'm looking for ways to get away from AJ Dillon because I'm worried that the ownership is going to get out of hand here. We don't have him projected for a crazy amount of ownership, but I am a little bit concerned that it's going to skyrocket there just because, he's a starting running back at 4,600. Everybody wants to play him. So I'm looking for ways to get different, maybe play the other running backs there.
Jillian Sullivan getting this in early. What's up, guys, with a super chat? Best Millie captain. Do you have a preference?
Yeah, I'm looking. I mean, I do like Jacoby Myers. AJ Dillon actually looks great in the captain spot in our single games tool. So like just using that tool, it probably is actually AJ Dillon. I'm looking, as I said, I'm looking for ways to get away from AJ Dillon, play some other plays. Jacoby Myers is, I think, the next best in terms of leverage in the captain spot. So I'm thinking it could be Jacoby Myers, but let me keep looking, see if there's anybody else that stands out. Always the kickers do stand out, but always
Devontae Adams too. Like if you want to play Devontae Adams a captain, he doesn't really have any positive leverage, but he has no negative leverage there either, and he's a monster.
True. Yep, that is a good point. I think I would just go with Jacoby Myers, maybe add in the narrative that maybe Devontae Adams is going to be locked up there with Jair Alexander. I don't know that that's a huge factor for me. I'm not usually concerned with the wide receiver cornerback matchups, but just a little extra bonus to the Jacoby Myers, but he's already getting just a massive target share. We've got him at 8% projected ownership, a little over 9% chance of being optimal. So I think Jacoby Myers is probably the best bet there.
I also know that he has negative leverage right now, but Josh Jacobs, you're never going to hear an argument for me against Josh Jacobs in this spot. 2 reasons, and we're going to get through all of this. We'll just kind of set the table here. But one reason being that you're still talking about a player who, despite all of the inefficiency as a running back this season on the ground, because it's been bad. Like, even I mentioned this to Matt this morning. I'm not trying to put lipstick on a pig here, but even in that Buffalo game where he had -2 rushing yards on 9 carries where they got slaughtered, and he still had 10 fantasy points because he caught 5 balls for 51 yards on 6 targets. You look at the targets, 6, 5, 11 over his last 3 games. The last game, Aiden O'Connell was leaning on in 29% target share. So I don't want to read too far into that. But even with Garoppolo, he did have the 3rd highest target share of the team, or on the team behind behind Adams and Myers. So I think you're looking at an easy potential 20+ touches in this game with involvement in the passing game. Samir White's not really being used. You're not really seeing anyone from this Raiders team, any of these secondary backs, get any consistent usage whatsoever. So yeah, I would say that Josh Jacobs is always going to be one of those guys that, when he has that breakout game, you're kind of going to wish that you had him in your captain spot. Yeah,
he's going to seem like a no-brainer when it hits.
Right, that's exactly right. Yeah, exactly. Because you're going to look back on it and go, all right, well, the Packers have been smoked on the ground. They literally 2 games with 200+ rushing yards allowed this season. The other was 122, and that was in a blowout win. I think Jacobs, anytime you want to make that argument, I'm on board with it. And I do like Jacobs at captain for sure, especially with Aaron Jones out. Just think Green Bay could have a more difficult time moving the ball. Silent Warrior using his free super chat, member of 5 months. Good stuff, man. Thanks for supporting the channel. Do you think Jair is good enough to shadow Adams? It's not about if he's good enough. It's just teams don't usually deploy shadow coverage as much anymore. Right. Well, I was reading on this the other day. Like, a lot of teams felt like they were giving too much away. They were giving too many tells when you're shadowing it. But I do think, Neil, that he's going to see a whole lot of Devontae Adams today. They're going to lock horns. Yeah. This is a fun matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to see plenty of it. It's not that impactful, though, just because of the way you don't really see a ton of shadow coverage. I don't think he's going to be shadowing Adams the whole game. And even if he did, I don't think he could really lock up Devontae Adams. He's just one of the best route runners in the game.
Adam said, anyone taking a risk on Patrick Taylor having a good night tonight? Well, you got Neil on this show, so you damn well know that Neil's going to have a little bit of Patrick Taylor today. I know he will without even talking to him.
Yeah, Patrick Taylor, one of my favorite plays on the entire slate.
He has to be minimum salary.
We have him up to 13% ownership. So earlier we had him like 6% ownership. I was like, there's no way that's going to hold, but if it does, it's going to be my favorite play on the slate. Even at 13% ownership, I'm going to be well over the field on Patrick Taylor. You look at the 2 games that Aaron Jones has already missed this year. Patrick Taylor was running a fair number of routes, like running more routes than AJ Dillon. He got up to 39% snap share in week 3. So he jumped up in snap share from week 2 to week 3. Have to assume that it's the Packers coaches seeing what everybody else in America sees, which is that AJ Dillon's is not very good. So maybe Patrick Taylor takes on an even bigger role than we're anticipating. Now, obviously, AJ Dillon has remained there as the running back 2 in the last week when Aaron Jones is back. So probably not Patrick Taylor going, surpassing him just yet. But I do think that Patrick Taylor is going to have a real role here. So yeah, I like Patrick Taylor quite a bit.
I do too. Someone asked who's the backup, who's going to get the backup touches for the Packers tonight in the backfield. Should be Patrick Taylor.
Yeah, most likely Patrick Taylor going to get the majority. Maybe Emmanuel Wilson works in there a little bit, but Patrick Taylor is my preferred option there.
Yeah, me too, for sure. Because we've seen him at least get some opportunities already, right?
Right.
And now that Aaron Jones is the whole Aaron Jones thing. So what is it? They just rushed him back and now he's not right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened there, to be honest.
Because don't forget, they haven't played since last Thursday. You certainly would have thought that he'd have plenty of time to get good for this game, right?
Right. You would think.
Yeah, I don't know. Because it's the hamstring. It's the hamstring that was bothering him last Thursday, and he played limited, and now he's out. That's no good.
Yeah,
that's no dude. If you have a lingering hamstring injury that kept you out for what, 3 weeks?
They're on bye next week, so I'll say that could be part of it, that they have a bye next week. So it's
could
just
be, yeah, certainly.
But
it's weird that they would rule him out today after practicing in a limited fashion all week.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just pulled it up, just looking at just weeks 2 and 3. So the 2 weeks that Aaron Jones was out, Patrick Taylor ran 26 routes, so 35% route participation in those 2 games. AJ Dillon was actually at 43% route participation. So I think I said Patrick Taylor ran more routes. That is incorrect, but not far behind AJ Dillon in terms of route participation in those games. And then, he actually had, here's where it was different. AJ Dillon had 1 target in those 2 games. Patrick Taylor had 5 targets in those 2 games that that Aaron Jones missed. So I kind of like the potential for Patrick Taylor to continue taking on a bigger. It says something that the Packers didn't just run with Emmanuel Wilson. So Patrick Taylor was at the point where he had been called up from the practice squad 3 times already. So they couldn't just call him up from the practice squad again. They had to actually put him on the active roster for this game. I think it says something that they decided to do that. They think that they kind of need Patrick Taylor. I think he's going to be involved.
I think so too. I also think when you're talking about this Davante Adams and you're talking about Jacoby Myers here, now you're getting into a situation where you've got 2 guys who clearly, without question, are the favorite targets of Garoppolo. Now, that's only through the first 2 games. Fine. But Hunter Renfrow has been non-existent. Who else? They're not throwing to Michael Mayer, sorry. They're not throwing to Austin Hooper, a couple targets a game, if that. Who else is getting the ball? Now, that isn't to say that we can't play these guys, because eventually we're just going to have to. Eventually you're just going to have to play some of these guys. They're cheap, and it's a showdown slate. So that's what we have working for us. If you're talking about this Raiders team, though, how are you approaching Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers on a slate like this, knowing that with Garoppolo, they have monster target shares, and along with Josh Jacobs in the backfield, this has really been a team with the production and opportunities concentrated between 3 very specific players.
Yeah, I'm going to have a ton of Davante Adams. I'm going to have a ton of Jacoby Myers. Currently, I have, just looking at the flex, I've got 46% Davante Adams. I'm assuming I have 66% Davante Adams overall. I've got 42% Jacoby Myers in the flex. I probably have around 60% overall. They're going to be 2 of my higher owned players. They've just had such concentrated volume. With that said, I actually do have a lot of interest in Hunter Renfrow. I feel like he hasn't done it yet at all this year, but at 11% ownership, 2,200 with there have been past years where honestly, all best ball season, I was drafting Hunter Renfrow thinking this guy used to be really good. There was one season where Hunter Renfrow looked elite. Then last year he was kind of banged up. I still think at some point he might make a comeback. Maybe it's wish casting a little bit, but he is tied for 3rd on the team in route participation on the year. It's Hunter Renfrow and Austin Hooper both have run 54% of routes for the Raiders. That's pretty significant. The target share is just 5.3%. He only has 7 targets on the year. So it is still a bit of a dart throw kind of play. It's mostly just a large field GPP play, but I got to think at some point Hunter Renfrow is going to get a little bit more involved. Maybe it helps a little bit that Christian Wilkerson is out. I do like Hunter Renfrow as a not super contrarian, but we've got him at 11% ownership. I think that's fairly contrarian for a wide receiver 3, who I think is pretty talented, and he's not expensive. So I really like Hunter Renfrow as one of the kind of long shot, bullet kind of plays as well.
I get it. You know what my only problem is with Renfrow? It's trying to actually evaluate what this guy is now compared to what he was, because in 2020, right. In 2021, it was Darren Waller. He was the only other guy, right? That was kind of it. Outside of that, Zay Jones, Brian Edwards, those were the guys on this team. And Hunter Renfrow's 1,000-yard season. Well,
Zay Jones is apparently really good, though. I mean,
what?
Zay Jones is actually really good, though. He's on the Jaguars. He's proven to be a pretty good receiver.
Sure. Look, I'm not saying that Zay Jones stinks.
Sure.
I'm just saying that Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers with Josh Jacobs as well, it's a different team.
That's totally fair. Totally fair point.
But also, could Hunter Renfrow just have a game? I think I'll meet you in the middle here because, and not to straddle the fence, but it's hard to believe that Hunter Renfrow just goes every game of the season with one target.
Exactly. He has 7 total targets in 4 games. Yeah. At some point, you got to think he's going to get a little bit more than he's gotten so far. I feel like on a showdown slate, this is where I want to take those kind of bets, especially with, potentially maybe Devontae Adams does see a little bit more Jair Alexander. Maybe it opens up Hunter Renfrow a little bit more, but really it just comes down to he's 11% owned. He's 2,200. He's going to be out there for most likely he's going to be running routes on more than 50% of dropbacks. That's enough for me to have some interest there.
Can you do anything with Michael Mayer right now? Because he's very uninvolved in this offense right now.
True. I will say that he had he played the most snaps that he has played all year last week. So that is blocking, at least promising. Yeah, I know. Mostly blocking. The only real reason that I would say that you can is because he's coming in at really low ownership. We've got Michael Mayer at 6% ownership. So as far as dart throws go, I don't really hate him. I think he's at least interesting. Let's see, he's run routes on 30% of dropbacks for the year. Not ideal there, but it's not nothing either. Like he's running out there a little bit. He has 2 targets on the year, so that's not, man, they drafted him. He was the 3rd overall tight end taken in this draft. Yeah. Like ahead of Luke Musgrave. He was taken just behind Laporta and Kincaid. You'd think that they'd use him a little bit more or hyped for him in the offseason. Just hasn't been there as a receiver so far this year. But
hey, not everybody can be Sam Laporta. Viable. You know what I mean?
That is right. I mean, Sammy Ballgame. I know you were one of the first to love your Sam Laporta. Yeah, he's looking damn good.
What about Musgrave tonight? He people, there's a lot of people that are high on him right now, just as far as like, hey, he's shown flashes. We won't know after last game because of the concussion, right? But yep. Musgrave's not a bad player. Also, and when you said it was the third highest drafted tight, was Musgrave second?
No, second was Dalton Kincaid was first. And then Samuel Laporta was second.
Right. Where did Musgrave go then?
I think Musgrave was later in the second round, if I'm remembering correctly. I think it went Kincaid the first round, and then I think it was Laporta and then Mayer back to back in the second round. I want to say that Musgrave was later in the second round, but I'm not
Musgrave went
positive.
You're right. Musgrave went 7 picks after Michael Mayer, and Mayer went 1 pick after Laporta. Oh, I bet they wanted Laporta.
I know. I'm sure they did, and I'm sure they have regrets at this point.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they couldn't do anything about it. They drafted him after Laporta, 1 pick. So True. Whatever. But anyway, how much Musgrave are you getting to right now?
Currently in the flex, I have 23%. That feels about right. The field is at 20%. It looks like I have 1 share of Musgrave in the captain. I like Musgrave quite a bit. Like he's a couple plays away from being like in the same conversation as Sam Laporta. Maybe not anymore after this past week where Sam Laporta went completely off scoring 2 touchdowns. But prior to that, it was like, man, Musgrave is just like, he's had a couple plays where like he was open down the sideline and he like slipped, like would have been an easy touchdown. He's had just a couple of those little plays where it was like, man, he was so close to breaking one off. His ADOT pretty far down the field. I do really like Musgrave in this spot. I'm going to be overweight to the field according to what our tools are saying right now.
I get it. It's another thing too. That's why I've mentioned it many times, but Jordan Love does have the lowest adjusted completion percentage in the league. So
it's not great.
But he does target guys downfield. Yeah. You look at 20+ yard targets. So deep balls this year targeted Jaden Reed, a slot guy, 5 times. Torrey 4 deep targets. Dobbs 4 deep targets. Musgrave has 3 deep targets. Wicks has 2. Malik Heath has 1. He does like to throw the ball downfield. So that's fine with me, especially if you got a guy in Musgrave who's going to, like you said, get some opportunities. It's just, can Jordan Love hit him in stride? Can he hit him at all? And
I don't know. Yeah.
You have to take the risk, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a single game slate. Like maybe I wouldn't want to play it. Honestly, he's a guy that I might have considered on a main slate just because he hasn't shown it, but he's been so close. But on a showdown slate in this matchup against the Raiders defense, I think you got to take some shots there.
Patrick asked, did I get your super chat? No, I saw that you joined, man. Welcome, by the way, to the team, brother. Let me see if there's a super chat that I missed. But yeah, hey, listen, since you joined, Jordan, can you see if he throws just throw a question at us. We'll get you since you joined. You got the badge now. You're in business. Seymour Cake. Will Josh Jacobs have over 25 receiving yards, and will Jordan Love have over 15 rushing yards? I don't have a crystal ball, brother, but we could talk about it. And do you guys see Devontae Adams having a touchdown? I mean, Adams is always live for a touchdown.
Yeah, I think he's going to score touchdowns in more games than he doesn't this year.
I'm wondering if this Prize Picks, Seymour? I'm wondering if it's Prize Picks, because Prize Picks, when it's a guy that's like close to even money on an anytime touchdown, will actually put it up there. Oh, he did super chat, Jordan. He actually added a super chat. I just missed it. All right, we'll get there. Jacobs 25 receiving yards. If I had to lean, I'd lean under on that because he only had an 8% target share with Garoppolo at quarterback so far. Love over 15 rushing yards. I would still go over on that. What about you?
15 rushing yards. I mean, he's averaged more than that for the year. Yeah, I guess slight over there for me. I agree.
Okay. Thank you, Jordan. And sorry, Patrick, I missed that super chat.
We'll get there.
Okay. I play in a FanDuel winner take all $100 with buddies. How do you, first of all, just Venmo, dude. Don't pay him rake. How do you recommend approaching this type of tournament? Cash game versus tournament style lineups. Well, I don't know how many buddies it is, but let's just say it's a handful, Neil. Let's just say it's like 8 or 10 or something, maybe.
Sure.
$100 winner take all. And I suppose we're just talking about showdown slate. If you're playing against, here, this is a nuanced answer that requires a nuanced question, or a question that requires a nuanced answer. I think you'll agree with me here. If these are buddies that play DFS regularly,
good point,
then maybe you do something a little bit different. If these are guys that you're just, that are just throwing money around and they don't really understand showdown, I would go straight chalkiest optimal cash lineup that I can find.
That's a perfect answer, to be honest. Like it really does. It comes down to your league mates, because if you don't think they're going to know about AJ Dillon or Patrick Taylor, like these how valuable it is to have these backup players coming in at low salaries relative to their projection. Yeah, you just want to play those guys. Whereas if they are like, it's a group of DFS players, then it's winner take all. So you do need to set yourself apart somehow. So I think that's the perfect answer. It really comes down to who you are playing with. But I would typically say, play more chalk in that kind of setting most of the time.
All right. So, and Patrick said he doesn't. So I'm assuming he's just, he's doing the free contest and then the Venmo. Smart. You don't want to pay them rake on something like that. Would suck.
So my brother has been doing the same thing. My older brother, who doesn't know anything about football or like how to play fantasy football, has been sending me screenshots. He's like, I started doing these contests with like 12 of my Notre Dame buddies. And like, we play against each other, just like small group on FanDuel every week. And he sends me his lineups and it's like 3 players who are going to be inactive. Like, I'm like, I've never heard of this guy who's in your FanDuel lineup. It's hilarious. So in that kind of group, I would just play the chalk.
All right, guys. You ready to get into some value plays here? Like, you want to dig a little deep into the weeds with me? All right. This is kind of your wheelhouse. This is your wheelhouse anyway, right? So let's do it. Before we do that. And guys, if you have to take a piss, if you want to flip onto the Phillies game for a moment and see what's going on, I can tell you right now, a little fly out action there from the Braves. We're watching, baby. So we're multitasking here. You got to do that, go for it. But if you're in one of these 6 states and you still haven't taken advantage of this, hear me out. Now, if you're in New Jersey, the wonderful state of New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, Iowa, and most importantly, Kentucky, Bet365. You got a football game tonight too. You got a football game Thursday. You got a Sunday. You got all this good stuff. You're getting $150 at Bet365. When you bet $5, if you're in one of those 5 states. Now, if you're in Kentucky, you're getting $365 when you bet $1. Here's all you have to do if you're in one of those. It's either $150 that you're making in 2 minutes. It's all it takes to sign up, verify yourself, deposit $10, but you only need to bet 5, or deposit 10, only need to bet 1, 10% of that if you're in Kentucky. Take 2 minutes. All right. Go ahead and make $150 in 2 minutes. One might even say you're making $75 a minute. Because if you win this bet or you lose this bet, doesn't mean shit. If you lose it, you got 150. If you win it, you got 150. And maybe you go, hey, I'm going to do a big parlay. I wouldn't recommend this usually, but in essence, it's a free bet with money coming your way regardless. Colorado, Virginia, Ohio, New Jersey, Iowa, and specifically Kentucky, either 5 in the 150 or 1 in the 365. Easiest way to get free money. Shop around books too. Now you've got an additional book. You're not just placing everything on DraftKings or FanDuel. You're taking advantage of an opportunity where they're giving you money to bet on that book, and you're making hundreds of dollars in the matter of minutes in doing so. Links in the description. Jordan threw it in the chat. Check it out if you haven't done so yet. Must be 21 years or older to gamble, and if you are, you should do it. Or if you're in Kentucky, 18 years or older. That's wild. If you're someone who has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's do it. Neil, talk to me. Value plays here. We'll start it off on the Green Bay side. What do you want to do with some of these dirt cheap Green Bay options today?
Yeah, I mean, I love Patrick Taylor. We already kind of talked about that, but I think there's a possibility that Patrick Taylor really does take on a big role here. He could just step into like AJ Dillon's usual role. Maybe AJ Dillon takes over the Aaron Jones. Patrick Taylor becomes AJ Dillon. He was pretty involved though. The two games that Aaron Jones already missed this season, Patrick Taylor was pretty involved, running lots of routes. Again, saw 5 targets across those 2 games. He'll have a handful of carries. He's 200. I like Patrick Taylor quite a bit. He's probably my favorite 200 option. He's probably going to be the field's favorite too. Like the field is going to play a good amount of Patrick Taylor. He looks really good. If you want to get really different, you could consider Emmanuel Wilson. I don't like him as much. I think that he's a much longer shot than Patrick Taylor is to pay it off, but he'll have some opportunities most likely. So not the worst option in the world. Somebody you can consider. Dontavian Wicks also 200. Again, I said it earlier, like he dropped from week 3. He played 66% of snaps. In week 4, he played 58%. That was not as big of a drop off as I would have expected with Christian Watson coming back. And I think Christian Watson played 46% of snaps in that game. Dontavian Wicks didn't lose as much of his role. It was more Samori Toure who lost most of his role. So Dontavian Wicks was still fairly like on the field a fair amount in that game. Now here I expect Christian Watson to be on the field more and more. So Dontavian Wicks will continue to decrease in snap share, I would assume, but I would still expect him to be out there some. So I think Dontavian Wicks is a fine flyer for the Packers. I'm not going to any Samori Toure here just because I think Dontavian Wicks is, he's getting a little bit more ownership, but I think that he's just a much better bet, much more likely to get there. And then I guess you could play like DeGuara. I guess he's 1,800. He's not 200, but for the Packers, he's somebody you could consider, or Tucker Kraft. I'm not going to either of those guys. I think there are enough value options who are not getting a ton of ownership that I do like. So I'm not going to those guys, but they're the others that you could consider for the Packers.
Someone just had a meltdown because we're talking about a sports betting site.
I think that he was joking, but I
can't tell. If he was, that was a solid troll. If he was. I was more so just presenting a way to get some additional funds in your account. Think of it that way. Think of it as turning a little into a lot. You know what I mean? All right. Swaggy Pete, what's up, dude? He's a member. Let's answer this question. Dave or Neil, would you play Dillon or Musgrave, or can you play Dillon and also Taylor? That's a great question. Okay. So we do this show so we can actually talk game theory, and we got 2,000 people watching with us right now. By the way, you might be right, Neil. We might not hit the 500 today, the 500 likes. You might actually finally.
I'm finally going to be right. Yeah.
For once, we're 95 away.
This is my show. This is my show.
This might be your crowning achievement.
Yeah. No chance we get there.
You might be right. Anyway, that's a great question. If you're trying to be different in a large field tournament, do you think Taylor and Dillon is remotely viable?
Oh, absolutely. It's viable. Given their price tags and their likely roles in the offense, like even assuming that they do just take on, which I think is probably the likeliest scenario, is just like AJ Dillon becomes Aaron Jones, Patrick Taylor becomes AJ Dillon. That's kind of what we've seen, like both pretty involved in the 2 games that Aaron Jones has missed so far. And now we have those players at the Aaron Jones role is 4,600. The AJ Dillon role is 200. Now, obviously I'm oversimplifying things, but like these guys are both just way too cheap for their roles. So yeah, I'm going to have a number of lineups with both of them in them.
You got crushed. 521. The people rally.
That's hurtful for me, Laffy. Clearly I was cheering against that.
Yeah, but you should take pride in the people. That's all I'm saying.
I do take a lot of pride in the people. We've got a great audience.
Still a win, you know what I mean? Thanks, guys. I honestly appreciate you supporting the channel. It really goes a long way when you hit that thumbs up and subscribe to us. It really does. All right, on the Raiders side, we talked about Renfro. We talked about Michael Mayer. Now we can get a little bit further down, and none of these guys are going to excite anybody. You're not going to feel good about any of this. And I think you've given us some really good things to think about for this slate as far as cheap guys go. After we get to these value guys, we still have plenty of time. So I want to talk about maybe some unique pairings that you think are viable on a slate like this. But for the Las Vegas Raiders, I've said it once, I'll say it a million times over. The concentrated target share makes things difficult, but it also makes everybody else really cheap. Like DeAndre Carter last week, 11% of snaps. Trey Tucker played 25% of snaps. Renfro played 45. Hooper was out there for 51. Look, Hooper's not exciting at all, but he has actually been more involved as a pass catcher. Take that for what it's worth. 5 targets to 2 for Mayer. But he still has been more involved. He's what, $900 or in the flex spot, he's $600. So he is still really cheap. I don't think Hooper's a crazy play today at all in this spot. You don't have to love him, but if you're talking about a guy who might get, I mean, hey, Neil, it's showdown. Rogue tight end touchdowns happen more than we could have imagined. And he's technically running more routes and getting more opportunities than Michael Mayer. What's his ownership at right now? It can't be high.
I'm looking in Fantasy Cruncher. Let me update it in our top stacks tool.
We have him at 8% ownership in the flex, 0.4 at captain. I mean, you don't want to captain him here. I get that, but it's funny, slight positive leverage at captain in our tools. But no, I would say the 8% at flex makes sense, but he's not that popular. He does have negative leverage today at -2%, but what are the value options for Vegas, if any, for you?
Yeah, so there are plenty, and I think you've named them all for the most part. Amir Abdullah is just 1,000, and he runs plenty of routes. So I was kind of surprised to see he has 0 carries on the year, and he only had 4 all of last year. I didn't realize like the extent. I knew he was a pass catching back. I didn't realize that they didn't use him at all, like on the ground. But that is who he is. Amir Abdullah, basically just another receiver out there, but he's cheap. He's running routes. So far on the year, he has 22% route participation. He does have 7 targets already in the year through 4 games. So I kind of like Amir Abdullah as just like maybe he houses one of those targets this week. He should have a couple targets at the very least, and he's just 1,000. So if he gets a couple catches, that's 2 points right away, and then any yardage. Hopefully he scored the touchdown. I think that there are outs for Amir Abdullah. So at 7% ownership, I think he's in play. He's not like a slam dunk like Patrick Taylor, like the Packers guys, but I do think I like him better than Zamir White, who is 3,200, and he's more of a running back, but he's not as involved in the passing game. So I prefer Amir Abdullah over Zamir White as the backup running back for the Raiders. I think I'm going to play some Amir Abdullah. I'm not personally playing White, but I think you could. I actually think so. So one guy that I did not name, there's only one player that I didn't mention, I think, in my article earlier today that I do have some interest in is Trey Tucker. Coming in at 200. He has 1 target on the year. That 1 target has 41 air yards. He is a burner. So I kind of regret it. So yesterday I did a show with EMAC. I never mention the name Kevontae Turpin. And then of course, after he scored that long touchdown, I was like, yeah, he only runs about 7 routes per game, but he is the kind of player who can break one off on just like 1 touch. It's the exact same kind of play for Trey Tucker. Like he's low probability. It's not going to happen all that often, but like he can just house one, just like a really long. He's a home run kind of play. He's 200 coming in at 5% ownership. I think he's the kind of guy that if you're playing 20 lineups, you should have 1 share of Trey Tucker, just because there's going to be 1 game this season, most likely, where Trey Tucker just houses a long touchdown. So he's the one guy that I did not mention earlier, but I do have some interest in. He'll run some routes. He might have 1 target in the game. If he catches it, it could be a long bomb though. So I do like Trey Tucker as just like a long shot GPP play. And then you named the tight ends. Michael Mayer coming in at 6% projected ownership in the flex right now. I like that. Even though he hasn't been targeted, he's running some routes out there. He's a big tight end. Tight end on Showdown can always score a touchdown. Austin Hooper, you kind of went over the pros and cons of Austin Hooper. A little bit more involved in the passing game, a little bit more expensive, a little bit more ownership there. But I think both are, low enough owned that I have interest in them. I'm going to have some Austin Hooper, some Michael Mayer also. So I think those are all of the Raiders guys that are coming in cheap, low owned that I am going to have some.
Adam Wood said, got any owner's box advice on a lineup? All right. So I actually just ran the Sims for Owner's Box because our Sims tool has Owner's Box. I did a smaller field on this one. Here's some of the best, and you guys already know all of our tools for the entire week are free when you sign up at Owner's Box and deposit a minimum of $10. They got awesome super flex contests. They've had huge overlay. They have a $500 first match deposit bonus, although it's only $10 minimum deposit if you want to get all of our tools for the week. So you're getting a ton of slates because you got the early Sunday, you got all the main afternoon, late slates, Monday, whatever, everything, every tool that we have, no add-ons needed. Every tool for NFL, you get 100% free. If you want to jump in on that, link in the description and in chat for Owner's Box and get in those contests, because right now their Showdown one, 6K up top today, is only 72% filled with 12 minutes to go. I ran it, and the highest simmed ROI lineup, Devontae Adams, Jimmy Garoppolo, Luke Musgrave, AJ Dillon, and Romeo Doubs. I mean, look, the Dillon thing doesn't feel great, but at the same time, you have to look at this as a spot that is going to be. You have to look at this as a spot, Neil, that he's there. He's going to get opportunities. That's the way it goes. Yeah. Jacobs, Garoppolo, Jaden Reed, AJ Dillon, Jacoby. I love that lineup. I love that one. If here's one that has no dupes ran when we ran it. Jacobs, Adams, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, AJ Dillon. Is that fair? Is that fair? Foul ball. No dupes on that. Adams, Reed, Musgrave, Jordan Love, Christian Watson. I'm actually going to run the Sims for DraftKings as well. While you talk to me about any contrarian things that you're looking to get to on a slate like this, maybe some odd pairings, maybe defensive kicker pairings and stuff like that. Maybe like however you want to play this from a contrarian standpoint, large field tournaments. I'm going to go ahead and run the Sims for a second and see what we get pulled up for DraftKings on tonight's Showdown slate.
All right, so I'll just go over the players that we have projected in the flex for sub 20% ownership, who I am getting the most of for sub 20% ownership. So of those players, it's Patrick Reed by me for a mile. He is going to be my most exposed super contrarian player. I have him in nearly 50% of my lineup. I'm only playing 25 lineups tonight, to be clear. So if I were doing a 150 set, I wouldn't have nearly that much, but I would still probably have like 30% Patrick Taylor. I just like the idea that his role could expand. And even if it doesn't, at 200, he's got a pretty good shot of paying it off. I think he's a pretty high floor, high ceiling kind of play. So I like Patrick Taylor quite a bit at sub 20% ownership. Hunter Renfrow, we've got at around 11% ownership. He's 2,200. I'm going to be above the field there. I like him quite a bit. I would say he is my second favorite kind of contrarian option. I have currently 19%. It might come down Amir Abdullah. I'm probably going to run another crunch or two, but I'm going to try to be above weight to the 7% we have going to Amir Abdullah. Obviously on DraftKings, any reception carries a lot of weight. You get a full point per reception, and he's running some routes out there, being targeted a little bit. So I do like Amir Abdullah. I am going to try to be above weight to the field on Trey Tucker, which would just mean 2 lineups for me with Trey Tucker in 25. I do think that he is interesting. And I got burned by Kevontae Turpin last night. Didn't have any. I'm going to make sure that I have some Trey Tucker exposure, just because he does have that kind of explosive speed out there where he can really just burn them on one play and pay off his salary. Michael Mayer, I have a little bit more than the field currently. He's coming in at just 6% util ownership. I've got 8% Michael Mayer, got him in a couple lineups there. I like him. I currently don't have any Emmanuel Wilson. I think I'm just going to let that ride. Just no Emmanuel Wilson. Make my bet on Patrick Taylor being the guy there. Emmanuel Wilson, I don't think is going to have a huge role, but if you want him to play some, if you're playing enough lineups, I think that he is viable there. Dontavian Wicks, I prefer Trey Tucker as the guy who I think is more likely to have one play where he just burns the other side and he's coming in lower ownership. But I'm going to have a little bit of Dontavian Wicks as well. I've got a little bit of Austin Hooper. I think that covers it for every player that I'm interested in. I guess besides the defenses. So the defenses, the kickers, I think I said sub 20%. All of those are sub 20%. I currently have a little bit of each kicker, each defense. I'm not going crazy there, which is probably a mistake. Our tools always tell us play more kickers than you want to, and I never do, and I always regret it later on in the night. So I'm making that mistake again, but certainly they look good in the tools. You always find positive leverage on the kickers in particular. The defenses here, I don't like. I loved the defenses last night in the 49ers Cowboys game as being a little bit overlooked Here it's a little bit tougher because I think that they're just weaker defenses going up against relatively decent offenses here. So I don't have any strong take for the defenses. I'm going to try to essentially match the field, which is like mid-teens ownership.
Hit on these super chats. Michael, Romeo Dobbs versus Watson. Do we expect Watson to take that much target share this week? Dobbs projecting slightly lower. Look, Watson played just under 50% of snaps, ran 18 routes, had 4 targets, I think, last week. I definitely think he's going to see more this week, especially because they didn't play. They played on Thursday, and then it's been like, what, 12 days since they last played. I don't think that he's going to make Romeo Dobbs irrelevant. He's not. I just think it's going to be a 1 and 1A situation that bounces back and forth from week to week. That's how I see it personally.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Okay. And then Pete Jordan, is that from Pete that super chatted us earlier? Yeah. Okay. So the super chat messed up. I was going to show some love to you and Neil for the solid intel you guys drop every week. You guys have helped me refine my game a lot in the past couple of years. Mad respect. Thanks, dude. Appreciate that. I did see that
awesome.
Super chat. I was definitely going to get to it. Corey, best single entry DK captain. Also, can Myers get there without Jimmy?
Michael Mayer get there without Jimmy Garoppolo? Yes, absolutely you can.
I'm assuming he's talking about
Jacoby Myers. Oh, you're probably right. Yes, that would make more sense. Yeah, also he can. Like he's getting a huge target share. Again, every time a quarterback throws a ball to the pass catcher scores more points. It's full point per reception. If, for example, 25 yards, the quarterback gets 1 point, the receiver gets 2.5. For a touchdown, the receiver gets 6 points, the quarterback only gets 2, and the receivers are typically cheaper. So yeah, for sure. Basically any receiver almost any week can get there without the quarterback.
Absolutely. Thanks for all the super chats, guys. All right, we still got 1,600 people here. You want to take a look at what the Sims are showing us for now? Neil, I went largest field, generated 10,000 lineups. I went 30% to first. So this, if you're looking at these lineups, would be for a large field tournament. Okay. Now this could be for like a large field, lower dollar entry as well. Just large field, steep, top heavy payout structure. The highest simmed ROI lineup is AJ Dillon at captain, Jacoby Myers, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, and Luke Musgrave. You know what? I'll tell you what. There's no Devontae Adams there, but I would be lying if I told you I didn't like that lineup. And you know why? You have Jacobs and you have Myers. So you're getting the other 2/3 of that massive target share. You have A.G. Dillon. Maybe he falls into the end zone a couple times. He stinks, but it's doable. It's a showdown slate. Luke Musgrave, we both talked about him. You've got him paired with Jordan Love. And hey, Devontae Adams practiced once all week, and it was a limited effort on Saturday. Maybe the shoulder, and I know I'm not saying our Sims are accounting for this, but when you're getting weird and you don't have somebody like Adams, maybe the shoulder just, isn't right. And he has a tough game, and Jacoby Myers and Josh Jacobs shoulder the load. Those type of lineups, I really don't hate them in large field tournaments.
You remember the T. Higgins slate, right? We've talked about it before on the show, like where it was like, oh, T. Higgins is active, and then they didn't play at all. It was just he was used as a decoy the entire game. There's no reason that they couldn't be doing the same with Devontae Adams, and they wouldn't tell us if that were the case. Yeah.
Now he's tough as shit. So I don't think
that's the case. To be clear, I'm playing a ton of Devontae Adams.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, there are arguments.
But there are ways he can fail, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
There are ways. Second highest simmed ROI lineup on large field DraftKings tournament: AJ Dillon, Jacoby Myers, Jaden Reed, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jordan Love, and Josh Jacobs. That's really interesting, huh? So you've got those two lineups at the top. And then the third best, the highest simulated ROI lineup. And obviously what the Sims are doing is they're simulating, thousands and thousands of lineups and pretty much essentially like predicting what type of lineups you're going to see in these contests, and then finding the highest ROI lineups among them, particularly in Showdown, the ones that aren't duped as well, or that shouldn't be duped a lot. Here's one, Neil: Devontae Adams, AJ Dillon, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jordan Love, Luke Musgrave, Raiders defense.
Sounds good. I like it.
Yeah, me too. How much AJ Dillon do you have at captain right now?
I have 15% AJ Dillon at captain.
15% Dillon at captain. Who's your highest owned captain?
I have, let's see, Jordan Love, 19%, Jimmy Garoppolo, 19%. That's kind of what happens for me because I give boost to pass catchers when I have the quarterback and the captain. I always end up with a little bit more. I don't even know if they're my favorite captains, but those are my two highest owned, followed by Adams and Jacobs. And Dylan, yeah, actually, yeah, 15%.
For sure. JJ Hug, this is why I love when these two are on. Their takes aren't based on feelings. No, I mean, like, we're always going to have certain things where you go, hey, I really like this guy today. For me, though, it's usually never on showdown sites. Like, it sounds weird. I would much rather take those type of stands on a guy I really like on a main site.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, I feel like on showdown sites, like I'm more apt to just like dig really hard into the numbers, and then once you have dug into the numbers, it's hard to want to do anything that's not numbers based. We still do a little bit though.
But I just mean like always being willing to say, look, this might not be the likely outcome, but it's a possible outcome, and if it happens, not a lot of people are going to do it. You know,
right? Exactly.
That's what it comes down to. Of course, the main slate is the same thing. I just mean you can get away with certain things at times. You could just not cash it all by being too heavy on your thoughts in these showdown sites. But yeah, man, it's an interesting one. We'll close it out with this. And as always, you guys are the best. We're getting to 600 likes, Neil. So, I mean, not only were you wrong, but you were double
I was painfully wrong. Man, that hurts. That hurts.
Painfully wrong. All right, ready? Who is the winning Millie Maker showdown? Who is in the captain spot?
I'm going to go with, honestly, I think I'm going to go with Devontae Adams. I think it is the likeliest to be there.
Hey,
what do you think?
I'm going to go Jacobs, but you're never going to hear a fight from me on Devontae Adams at all. Appreciate you guys. You're the best. We'll see you back here for Thursday Night Football. First look show with Ben Rasa and myself tomorrow. And make sure, guys, as these contests lock, make sure you're rocking the Stochastic Hall of Fame avatar because, well, the Stochastic avatar, stochastic.com/avatar, because if you happen to finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and you tweet your wins at to us, it's Stochastic HOF, and you're repping that avatar, you're getting the free month of your choosing, whatever you want, up to $200 value, and you get inducted into the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Can't beat it, man. Can't beat it.
That's great.
Thanks. It's awesome. It's awesome. Rep the team, be the team, get free stuff, get inducted into the Hall of Fame. We love it. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you back here soon. Peace.